chapter 4, what is Arcturus and who are the Arcturians? The first thing I did when I woke up in the morning after my interstellar journey was to glance on my nightstand. Sure enough, the small notebook was still open to a page I scribbled on during the night. I picked it up and read Arcturus. It wasn't a dream. Whatever happened the night before was as real as me touching this piece of paper right now. I needed to know more. This was something outside my daily occurrences. Yes, I have been on an intense spiritual journey for the past 3 years. I had an amazing experience during my trip to Costa Rica, where I received the blessing and the guidance of Mother Ayahuasca. I learned to journey with other mind-altering plant medicines, but traveling to another planet was a whole other subject matter. I grabbed my coffee and snuck back into the bed with the intention of doing some research. As soon as I started to type in the search engine the letters ARCTU, the first possible choice was indeed Arcturus. I clicked on it, and lo and behold, Wikipedia had a lot to say about Arcturus. Arcturus is not just any star. It's one of the brightest stars in our night sky, and it holds a special place in both astronomy and spiritual traditions. Arcturus is a giant star located in the constellation Boötes, about 37 light years away from Earth. Its name comes from the ancient Greek word meaning guardian of the bear, as it appears to follow the Ursa Major, the Great Bear, constellation across the sky. In astronomy, Arcturus is celebrating for being a star that has moved beyond the main sequence phase of its life. This means it has expanded and cooled after exhausting the hydrogen in its core, making it much larger and more luminous than our sun. But beyond the scientific facts, I discovered that Arcturus has a deep spiritual significance as well. In various metaphysical and spiritual traditions, Arcturus is seen as a beacon of light and wisdom. It is often described as a gateway to higher dimensions and realms of consciousness, with many believing that beings from Arcturus are highly advanced and work to assist humanity in its evolution. These beings, often referred to as Arcturians, are said to embody peace, healing, and spiritual enlightenment. This book was written with automatic writing. I literally channeled this entire book last year, and I finished it, published and everything, in 2.5 months. And it's written in code. So when you hear these codes, these are activating codes for your inner DNA. And I can tell you that it's activating because it's activating me right now. Even though I'm the one who wrote the book, I'm still receiving new activation from reading it. I just want you to know that if you feel something, it's because it's written in code. So the code activates your inner algorithm. As I delved deeper into the mysteries of Arcturus, I realized that my journey was not just an accidental personal exploration, but part of a greater cosmic connection. Deep down, I knew that my journey to Arcturus was more than just a visit to a distant star. It was a bridge between worlds, and while for the moment I had no idea what this all meant, I had an inner assurance that one day there will be some true knowledge imparted to me that will change my life and potentially the lives of others. Up until that point in my life, I have never heard of Arcturus or the Arcturians. I have always been a little bit of a skeptic in life. I also happen to have an engineering degree, and I consider this to be the reason for my borderline pragmatism. I didn't believe anything unless it happened to me. At that time, I did not believe in God because there was no logical explanation of his existence. I didn't believe in aliens because I haven't met them. To me, everything had to add up. The entire idea of me traveling to a star outside of the Milky Way while still in my bed didn't make much sense, but I could not dispute my own experience, so I continued my research. The Arcturians are often described in various spiritual and metaphysical traditions as guardians of higher knowledge and wisdom, existing on a plane of consciousness that transcends our ordinary understanding of reality. They are believed to be a highly advanced, benevolent race of light beings. Unlike humans, they exist in a state of pure consciousness, embodying qualities such as love, peace, and unity. Their presence is often associated with deep spiritual wisdom and the ability to guide others towards higher states of awareness and personal transformation. In the vastness of the universe, the Arcturians are seen as protectors, healers, and guides, offering their knowledge to those who are ready to receive it when they ask for it. They are known for their deep commitment to helping humanity evolve, particularly in times of great change or challenge. The Arcturians are said to communicate telepathically, offering insights and guidance to those who are open to receiving their messages. They are often depicted as beings of light, radiating a soothing blue or violet aura, which is reflective of their deep spiritual connection. Their wisdom transcends words, often imparted through feelings, vision, or deep inner knowing. In my research, I found that the Arcturians are often associated with healing and transformation, not just on an individual level, but on a planetary scale as well. They are believed to work closely with Earth during pivotal times, helping to elevate consciousness and assist in the healing of the planet and its inhabitants. The idea that such beings could exist, so far removed from the physical and emotional struggles that define human life, was awe-inspiring and comforting while I was still dabbling in my own disbelief. As I continued to learn about the Arcturians, I felt an increasing connection to their energy, as if they were gently guiding me towards a deeper understanding of myself and the universe. Though I had yet to fully understand the depth of their influence or the teachings they would eventually share, I sensed that my journey with the Arcturians was only just beginning. Whether they opened the doorway to new possibilities where I was the one who unlocked it, this was clearly an invitation, a call to embrace a realm of heightened awareness, spiritual evolution, and unwavering trust. My next step was to search the web for any images portraying these amazing beings I was already in love with. I proceeded to type in the search bar the word Arcturians and then clicked on images. Sure enough, a plethora of images of bluish-colored beings showed up to my delight. They looked kind and loving and highly intelligent. It felt like Twilight Zone. I knew I experienced something amazing the night before. I just couldn't understand exactly what it was and the level of reality I can associate it with. Once I was satisfied with the images I clicked back on the All button right below the search bar. One of the very first links that showed up in my search was an Amazon link for a book. I couldn't believe my eyes when I read the title, How Arcturians Are Healing Planet Earth by Wayne Brewer. I suddenly realized that the subject of Arcturus and Arcturians is not as obscure as I first imagined, even with all the information I read so far. Evidently, I immediately bought the book and it was set to be delivered to my house by the next morning. Chapter 5 of the Arcturian Healing, Accidental Astral Travel, A Journey to Self-Healing by yours truly, Carmen Badan. Chapter 5. We are not alone. That night I felt exhausted and I went to bed right away. Plus, I really wanted to read this book I just bought to see if I can learn anything useful for my next trip to Arcturus. Yes, I was excited and extremely curious, but I guess somewhere along the way, I learned to enjoy deferred gratifications. My new book, How Arcturians Are Healing Planet Earth, was delivered around 11 a.m. the next morning. I plopped myself down on the couch in my living room and didn't stop reading for a few hours. I was captivated, not only that the author, Wayne Brewer, had multiple experiences related to the Arcturians, but several other healers and hypnotherapists connected with him in the book, had their own relationships with these enlightened beings. With the first chapter of the book, I was introduced to the idea that we, human beings, are sometimes haunted by entities. I had always known that there was more to our world than what we could see with our eyes. My ayahuasca journey and my recent visit to Arcturus have already opened my mind to the vast interconnected web of life that exists across the universe. But it wasn't until I stumbled upon this book that I began to truly grasp the deeper, often darker layer of this cosmic tapestry. The book was unlike anything I had read before. It was both enlightening and unsettling. As it delved into the existence of entities, discarnates, demons, and reptilians, I never fully understood these beings, nor did I realize they could have such a profound impact on our world. I remember a time during my youth when I witnessed a young girl who they said was possessed by demons. I was around 18 years old and my mom insisted to take me to a tiny little church in a village about an hour and a half drive from my home. There, a gifted priest was said to be able to clear anyone who believed in God of their pain and suffering caused by demons or any other ties with the dark side they might have. My mother was convinced that ever since I was almost mauled by a large and vicious dog when I was a child, something inside of me changed and she took it upon herself to save my soul. By then, I had totally rebelled against the church, God, Jesus, and all the dogmas spread out from the pulpit. But I couldn't stand up to my mother when she was on a mission. She had a knack for getting her way, often with a persistence and determination that left no room for argument. She wasn't dragging me to church on a regular basis, so every now and then I would acquiesce just to make my own life easier at home. My mother could have sold ice to an Eskimo, but only because she'd make them feel like they had no choice. On one of those trips to the little Christian Orthodox church, I witnessed this girl who happened to be the same age with me and from my high school suddenly launch herself above the worshippers, her bulging eyes locked on the priest and the Bible, as if driven by an unseen evil force. She was possessed. her screams filled with rage as she cursed and struggled desperate to reach the priest and do harm. Her father and a couple of other men were hardly able to hold her back, even though physically she was tiny and frail. We were all terrified, frozen in disbelief as the chaos unfolding before us. The priest was stern and continued his prayer as if nothing happened, urging the unseen entities to get up and leave. This book was speaking of something very similar with a commonality that surprised me. I had no idea that people are really dealing with this type of issues in this day and age and in the Western world. As I turned the page, I learned that these entities are non-physical beings that inhabit various dimensions, often lingering in the shadows of our reality. Discarnates, for example, are souls who have not fully transitioned after death. They remain earthbound, trapped by unresolved emotions, unfinished business, or attachments to the physical world. While some are benign, others can drain the energy of the living, creating a sense of heaviness or negativity in their surroundings. Well, I could totally relate with this type of entity. I have been convinced that while my father passed away in 2005, his soul was still hovering around because he kept on showing up in my dreams, always with the same message. He was not dead. I would dream my father in a variety of scenarios, but the message was always the same. You see, Dad, you are still alive. It was almost as if I did not want to accept the fact that he passed away, and because of this, I was holding him back from transcending. I was hopeful that using the information I learned from this book, I will be able to release my father and let him have his peace. The chapter on demons was even more unsettling. These entities born of fear, hatred, and other lower vibrations seek to spread darkness and chaos. They thrive on negative energy, manipulating thoughts and emotions to keep individuals and even entire communities in a state of fear. The idea that such beings could influence human behavior was disturbing, but the book emphasized that they only hold power where fear and negativity are present. Then there were the reptilians, a term I had heard in passing but never fully understood. According to the book, reptilians are a race of interdimensional beings known for their intelligence, cunning, and desire for control. Unlike the Arcturians, who work to uplift and heal, reptilians are often depicted as working to manipulate and dominate. The book described how they could influence leaders and governments, subtly guiding humanity towards conflict and division to maintain control. Reading about these beings was like peering into a hidden world that I had sensed but never fully acknowledged. The text was clear, however, that while their entities are powerful, they are not invincible. While discarnates and demons can be removed with the help of high consciousness avatars like Yeshua and the archangels, the reptilians can only be released by the Arcturians. Ooh. With their profound healing abilities, the Arcturians work tirelessly to counteract these dark forces and to bring balance and harmony on planet Earth. They are the guardians of Earth energy grid, ensuring that the planet remains in balance despite the presence of these negative influences. The book provided insights into how Arcturians go about this monumental task. They use their advanced knowledge of energy and consciousness to heal the planet and its inhabitants. By raising the vibration of Earth, They create an environment where entities like discarnates, demons, and reptilians have less power. The Arcturians also work with light workers on Earth, guiding them in practices that cleanse and protect their energy fields from the dark influences. What struck me most was the emphasis on self-empowerment and awareness. The book made it clear that the more aware and spiritually aligned we are, the less influence these negative entities can have over us. It wasn't just about understanding these beings, but also about recognizing the importance of keeping our own vibration high and our intentions pure. As I absorbed this new information, I felt a mix of emotions, curiosity, concern, and a deep sense of responsibility. The world was more complex than I had ever imagined, and the battles for energy and influence were happening at levels most people never even realized. But with this knowledge came a sense of empowerment. I had a suspicion that my encounter with the Arcturian world was preparing me for something outside of my ordinary life, and I felt that this book was a crucial piece of the puzzle. This book had opened my eyes to a reality that, while daunting, also offered hope. The Arcturians were not just passive observers. They were active participants in the healing of Earth, and they were offering humanity the tools and knowledge to do the same. Armed with this understanding, I felt more prepared for the next phase of my journey, both on Earth and in the stars. By the time I was done reading, I had a list of ideas and strategies I was excited to put into practice on my next trip to Arcturus. Chapter 6. Mission Arcturus activated. This is a good chapter. Seems a little dark. Okay. Whew. God, I love this book. I'm on the edge of my seat. I couldn't wait to go to bed that night and apply the wisdom I gathered from Wayne's book. After my evening meditation, I jumped in my space capsule. I traveled in a space capsule through cosmos, and that's how I ended up to Arcturus. After my evening meditation, I jumped in my space capsule, brought myself into a theta state, and took off for the stars. I had been told by the big blue bird that the Stargate will remain open for me indefinitely. But I was still a little nervous. I needed to see it with my own eyes to believe it. Sure enough, shortly after takeoff, as soon as I focused on my intention, I suddenly found myself on the platform where I first met the bird 2 nights ago. Within seconds, the now familiar and comforting sound of his massive wings moving through the air filled my ears and the entire field around me. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. With a graceful yet powerful motion, the bird slid to a stop right in front of me, just like an ice skater breaking through an invisible layer of ice. He did it again, I said to myself, and I couldn't help but smile at his dramatic entrance. He puffed out his chest and tilted his head, giving me that mischievous look I had come to recognize from our previous encounter. Clearly, this bird loved to make an impression, and even more so, he loved to make me laugh. With a little hop, he twirled in place, pleased with his performance. "Welcome back," he said to me through the ether, and his eyes were twinkling with amusement. I couldn't help but laugh, and the tension of anticipation I had prior to my arrival had melted away in his presence. I like this guy. I suddenly realized that I have been so trapped and focused and on what I was going through that I never asked his name. His jovial spirit was infectious, and I was grateful for the lightheartedness he brought to our encounter. This wasn't just a guide. This was a friend who knew exactly how to keep my spirits high, even when the path ahead was so uncertain. As I mentioned before, All the communication on Arcturus happens telepathically. So once I consciously acknowledged my desire to know his name, this astonishingly beautiful and impressive blue bird responded, "I am Bob, and I'm happy to be your guide here on Arcturus." Bob, the big blue bird. Right here, this one. Looks like an avatar bird. "I am sorry it took me this long to ask for your name. I have been so absorbed by all that's been happening. Thank you for meeting me today. Are you going to be here every time I visit?" I asked, visibly embarrassed by my own impoliteness. "Yes, I am your personal guide. You might not realize it yet, but we are in communication all the time, on and off Arcturus. I receive messages from you and I can read your mind even when you are not here. I think you should know this," he said while he winked at me. "Okay," I answered, and for some reason his confession did not seem out of the ordinary to me. "I know that you came here today with a to-do list. What would you like to do first?" he asked. My main priority was to determine if there were any lingering entities attached to me. Although I couldn't identify any clear signs, the chaos in my life over the past 2 years suggested that a significant breakthrough was overdue. Shortly after moving out on my own with my 2 dogs, I experienced what some call the dark night of the soul. One morning, I woke up with an existential question echoing in my mind: who am I? In that moment of clarity and shock, I began sifting through the memories of my life. What I discovered was unsettling. More often than not, I had been the person others expected me to be, rather than who I genuinely wanted to be. I spent almost a month in torment, revisiting memories and trying to recall any moments where I had truly been myself. The realization weighed heavily, not only stirring feelings of regret for what I perceived as wasted time, but also igniting a paralyzing fear. I didn't know who I truly was, and I had no idea how to uncover my authentic self. Fortunately, one sunny morning, I woke up remembering a quote from Tom Bilyeu's speech at a Mind Valley conference in the spring of 2019. "It doesn't matter who you are today, it matters who you want to become and what price you are willing to pay to get there." I'm going to say it again. It doesn't matter who you are today. It matters who you want to become and what price you're willing to pay to get there. This quote resonated with me so much that I even created a meme related to it and posted it on my social media. What I didn't know at that time is that this quote will be a lifesaver only a few months later. Remembering this quote is what snapped me out of my dreaded agony I was in. And while I didn't have a clear answer to the who I am question, at least I had a mission to find out who I wanted to become. They say that sometimes if you want to find out what you want in life, you can start with finding out what you don't want first. So far, over a year into my, let's call it, research, I found out that I didn't want to date any guys I met in bars. Dating sites were a time warp, and red flags are not a sign that the carnival is in town. I figured out that the guy I was dating had narcissistic tendencies, which meant I was codependent. I also learned that codependency means lack of self-love, and lack of self-love is a result of childhood trauma, and one of the reasons why we attract certain types of people in our lives. I learned that nobody comes into my life to hurt me. They come to show me what I needed to work on. I learned that until we love ourselves unconditionally, we cannot love anyone else truly, and we will never attract the ideal partner in our lives. Yes, It took me a half a century to wake up to this realization, and I was committed to do everything in my power to change. And because the past 2 years felt like a roller coaster, I thought I better find out more about these entities I read about. As soon as I formulated a mental request to investigate the presence of entities within my auric field, I intuitively knew that my father was stuck in this realm, and I was the reason he was not transitioning into peace. I had what I used to call it an unfinished business with my father. My father was a great man. He worked very hard and dedicated his life to the well-being of my mom and me. I was born in communist Romania, which meant scarcity and fear were roaming freely everywhere you turned. When I was 8 years old, my father was offered the opportunity to travel and work in Iran and Egypt. He worked for the energy company of Romania, and at that time his company was given the contract to build high-tension power towers through these countries. At first, he worked in Iran for about 2-3 years until the political environment changed and it became dangerous for any foreigners to be in the country. For the following 7 to 8 years, he was stationed in Egypt, and we got to see him every 6-7 months when he came home on vacation. While I truly enjoyed all the amazing things his suitcases were loaded with every time he came home, I grew up without a father. I remember one Sunday morning I was looking out the kitchen window watching families going to church together. They were children, just like me, holding hands with their mother and father, dressed in nice clothes, not a care in the world. That morning, I remember saying to myself, I wish I had a father. Even though I was the only kid in my apartment complex to wear blue jeans and fancy tennis shoes, and I always had my pockets filled with chiclet chewing gum, and my father brought me pistachios and pomegranate and gold jewelry, and I had the opportunity to visit him in Iran and in Egypt. Growing up without my father's presence had traumatic consequences that daunted me throughout my entire life. My father was a very well-respected master in his field. One of my family's keepsakes was a newspaper article written about my father during the time he was leading a team of hardworking men who were building high-tension power towers in the northern mountains of Romania. Somewhere in the article, after an abundance of words of appreciation directed at my dad, it was written in bold letters, Badan, Badan. With people like Badan, you can move mountains. This was a true definition of my dad. And yet somehow, I never managed to fully express my love and appreciation for him. Or at least, this is what I believed. Unfortunately, I never had the opportunity to spend a lot of time with my father when I was growing up. And when he passed away, I was already moved to the United States. His passing was somehow unexpected, and I didn't get a chance to see him alive and tell him how much I loved him. I felt guilty, and I was left with a heavy weight on my heart. And because of this, my father's soul could not find his peace. That night I knew I needed to let him go. I looked up in the sky and whispered with tears in my eyes, I love you, Dad. You can go now. I will be okay. Only seconds after I opened my heart and freed my dad's soul, I looked up into the infinite field above me and saw my father's smiley face popping up from behind a cloud, and like a miracle from above, I read his lips clearly forming the words, I love you, thank you. And then the entire image dissipated in front of my eyes, just like a cloud dispersed by the sun. My father's soul is free, and I was happy. I then returned to my Arcturian journey, and I asked to be shown if there are any demons or reptilians interfering with my presence on Earth. I felt something like a scanning light moving from my head to the bottom of my feet, looking for any low frequencies. It looked just like the light that moves up and down in a copy maker or a scanner. I got no results, which I was sort of surprised but pleased as punch. The person I needed to be thankful to for this refreshing news was my grandmother Elena on my mother's side. Madame Filipoia was a remarkable woman. Though she lived humbly in a small house atop a hill in a quiet Romanian town, tending to the farm animals and raising her 5 children, she carried herself with a dignity that felt almost regal. Everyone who knew her respected her, and she became affectionately known as Madame Filipoia, a name we, the children, also adopted as a term of endearment. She exuded kindness, resilience, and strength. No one in need ever left her home empty-handed, and her compassion extended to the many stray animals she cared for, especially the abandoned cats. She possessed a gift, what some might call witchcraft, though she only used it for healing and protection. My grandmother's unique talent lay in undoing malicious spells rather than casting them. She was a healer, a protector, and a guardian for our family. In many ways, she became my role model. I didn't just inherit her mystical nature. I also followed her professional footsteps by becoming a textile engineer, taking up the craft she had mastered. Since childhood, I recall her telling us never to be afraid, explaining that negative entities only cling to fear. Know that they exist, she would say, but never be afraid. And if you sense them, cast them away with a firm, "Be gone." Her wisdom, passed down through her words, has stayed with me, providing a protection and guidance throughout my life. Even now, I feel a profound gratitude knowing that her legacy and lessons shield me just as they did when I was a child. Chapter 7. Starship Athena and the Healing Blue Light. In his book, How Arcturians Are Healing Planet Earth, Wayne Brewer talks about the starship Athena, named after the Greek goddess. He also mentions that one of his spirit guides has been goddess Athena, and that while his other spirit guides have communicated with him throughout the years in one way or another, Athena has always been silent. He always felt her presence, and he knew that she's always there guiding him, but she never showed up in any communication or prayers or meditations. The reason why I connected with this information is because I have the same thing happening for me. Throughout the years, I have been closely guided by Mother Mary, Jesus Christ, Paramahansa Yogananda, the Egyptian god Thoth, and Athena. And while I have been in direct communication with each of the first 5, either through dreams, prayers, meditations, or transmissions, the only contact I have with Athena is a knowing that her presence is within me. In fact, every time I enter an important meeting or I am about to speak on a stage, I invoke and embody the goddess Athena, and the world simply opens its gates for me. Not unlike Wayne's relationship with Athena, the goddess of wisdom and courage doesn't speak to me. She speaks through me whenever I call on her. Athena, the goddess, is one of the most revered figures in Greek mythology. She is known for her wisdom, courage, and strategic warfare, and she embodies many aspects of both intellect and strength. Athena is unique among the Greek gods as she represents both wisdom and war. However, unlike Ares, the god of war, who symbolizes the chaotic and violent aspects of conflict, Athena is associated with strategic warfare, defense, and the protection of the polis, city-state. She is a patroness of heroes and is often depicted guiding and assisting them in their quests. Most notably, Odysseus in Homer's Odyssey, and Perseus in the myth of the Gorgon Medusa. Athena's wisdom also extends to practical and intellectual pursuits. She is the goddess of craftsmanship, particularly in weaving, and is often invoked as a patron of artisans and those engaged in creative endeavors. Her guidance is said to inspire clarity of thought, innovation, and skillful execution. Athena remains one of the most iconic deities in mythology, representing a balance between strength and wisdom. Her influence extends beyond ancient Greece, inspiring countless works of art, literature, and philosophy throughout history. In modern times, Athena symbolizing the enduring values of justice, rationality, and the pursuit of knowledge. And it is no surprise that the Arcturian people have chosen to name their starship in her honor. Here's what Wayne Brewer has to say about Athena and the starship bearing her name. Athena was intelligent, strong, confident, and had a very clear head. She reacted wisely and maturely instead of emotionally. She also had an androgynous aspect, which is how the Arcturians have described themselves to us. The starship Athena appears to have been built specifically for the Arcturian mission on Earth. Although it is a complex and technically advanced spacecraft, it wasn't designed for battle. It is, however, equipped for protection. Just as the goddess Athena protected her namesake city of Athens, the starship Athena now protects Earth. End quote. Nearly 4 years have passed since my first encounter with the Arcturian civilization, and the memory still leaves me in awe. The idea that such an advanced intelligence could exist so close to Earth, intertwined with our reality, is both humbling and mysterious. Initially, I questioned my own sanity, wondering if it was all just a figment of my vivid imagination. I dismissed the possibility of it being a mere dream, especially after several encounters where, even after getting up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom, I'd return and pick up exactly where I'd left off. This continuity felt too coherent to be a mere dream. Over time, I came to realize that if I was losing my mind, I was not alone. More and more people are reporting interactions with multidimensional beings like the Arcturians, Pleiadians, and Andromedans. These encounters, once brushed off as far-fetched, are now becoming part of a larger conversation about consciousness and the unseen realms that coexist with our own. It's a thought. It's as though humanity is collectively awakening to the possibility that we are not alone in our spiritual journey, that these higher dimension beings might be here to guide, heal, and remind us of our potential. This realization gave me a renewed sense of confidence and peace of mind. Instead of doubting myself, I chose to trust the process and to look at these experiences as an invitation to expand my understanding and raise my own consciousness. Through this journey, I have come to understand that the unknown doesn't just hold mysteries, but it offers profound lessons that create new pathways to self-discovery. Based on my research and my own experience, I gather that the Arcturian spaceship Athena is a marvel of both advanced technology and spiritual energy, embodying the wisdom and power of the Arcturian civilization. Unlike any spacecraft imagined by human minds, Athena isn't just a vessel for travel, is a living entity, a conscious being designed to facilitate healing, learning, and transformation on a cosmic scale. Another intriguing piece of information that I learned from Wayne's book, and I was eager to put it in practice that evening, was to request a visit to Starship Athena. Yes, according to Wayne Brewer, I could ask to be taken on board this magical starship, and my wish would immediately be granted. I also learned that on Starship Athena there is a room called the Healing Blue Room, and I can ask to be taken there and healed with a healing blue light. As soon as this intention became clear in my mind, I was teleported aboard Athena, lying comfortably on what appeared to be a medbed. The surroundings was serene, bathed in a calming blue hue that instantly put me at ease. The bed itself was soft and contoured to my body. Above me, a beam of radiant blue light emerged from a device that reminded me of the light of a dentist's chair. But instead of a sterile, clinical feeling, this light carried with it a sense of warmth, safety, and deep, profound healing. As the light began to scan over my body, I could feel its effects immediately. The blue light wasn't just shining on me, it was penetrating every layer of my being. I felt it travel through my skin, muscles, bones, reaching into every organ, every cell, and every nerve. The sensation was unlike anything I had ever experienced. It was as if the light was a living entity working with intelligent precision to heal and restore my entire body. Wherever the light touched, I felt a gentle warmth that melted away any tension or discomfort I had been holding on. My breathing slowed, deepened, and with each exhale, I felt years of stress and pain leaving my body. The light seemed to seek out and dissolve any areas of imbalance or disharmony, flooding them with pure healing energy. It was as if every cell in my body was being cleansed, rejuvenated, and brought back into perfect alignment with the divine creation. The healing wasn't just physical. I could sense the blue light working on a deeper level, soothing my emotions and quieting my mind. Old fears, doubts, and anxieties seemed to drift away, replaced by a profound sense of peace and clarity. I felt lighter, as though a heavy burden had been lifted from my spirit. As I laid there, immersed in the healing blue light, feeling it scan and restore every square millimeter of my body, flashes of code began to appear in my mind. It felt like the veil between realms was lifting momentarily, giving me glimpses of an underlying algorithm. In those brief flashes, I perceived not just insight, but a sense that the universe is a complex, intentional sequence, a computer code of which we are all integral parts. The healing felt like a recalibration, a way of realigning myself with this universal program. At times, I also felt an intense, almost tangible sense of being observed. Brief flashes revealed someone or something above me, following my every movement as though I was part of a grand experiment. There was an eagerness in this presence, a feeling that they were watching, filled with love and anticipation, as if cheering me on. It felt as though they couldn't communicate with me directly, and they were just waiting for the moment I would finally open my eyes and fully awaken to the truth of this shared reality. The light continued its work, moving methodically from my head down to my toes, leaving no part of me untouched. Everywhere it touched, I felt completely renewed, as if I had been given a fresh start, not just in the body, but in the mind and soul as well. I could feel my heart inundated with gratitude as the blue light continued in its healing work. A deep sense of calm washed over me, and before I knew it, I drifted off into a profound, dreamless sleep. The next thing I knew, I was waking up in the morning, feeling utterly rejuvenated and refreshed, as though every part of me had been replaced overnight. It was exactly as Wayne described it in his book. Not only that the healing was thorough and deeply restorative, but it felt like the session continued smoothly while I was shifting into the sleep state. The Arcturian healing blue light worked its magic while I rested, and when I woke up, I felt like a brand new being.